Is she there? Let me see. Do I see you? Yes, I see her. Awesome. Anse Safiyyah Salaam was born to convert parents in New York State and raised in Alabama. She holds a bachelor's degree in Spanish and a master's degree in collaborative education with an English as a second language endorsement. She began her career in special education and currently teaches ESL grade 4 and 5 at the Urban Public School. In addition, she leads a bi-monthly club for Muslim girls aged 6 to 11. She has been a student and volunteer with Ribaat since its inception. Ustada Safiyyah is a wife and a mother of three, and she's been teaching skills and methodology for elementary with the Ribaat since 2017. Thank you. Ustada Safiyyah, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon everybody who is here. I want to thank formally the Rabata Masjid team for inviting me here. I want to thank Iman Maniga and Imam Fadia and also Salwa Barhumi who invited me personally to the program. Thank you, everybody. And also people that I didn't name. It's always a learning experience for me every time I come and give a talk. So thank you so much for this growth and this learning opportunity. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, and may He send prayers and peace upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. So I was asked to talk about Mary's courage, and I'm going to try to make a concerted effort to use all of the English terms, especially since we have guests who are here who may not share our Muslim faith. So if I fall and I forget, I need somebody to remind me. But I was asked to speak about her courage. And the first thing I thought of when I had that topic was like, wow, whenever we think about Mary, whether we're Muslim, Christian, or other, courage really is not on the list of attributes that people have for her, right? They have this concept of this holy woman, this saintly woman, this virtuous woman, this patient woman, all of these things, but we never really think about courage. And that led me to think about how really, no matter what our faith tradition is, we really tend to romanticize Mary. And we take that human aspect of who she really was and we sugarcoat it and we kind of turn it into a, almost a fairy tale of what her life was. And so I thought there was really no way to really delve into this talk about courage unless I gave us some images. And regardless of if we're Muslim or Christian, I know with Christianity we have lots of imagery surrounding the life of Mary and the life of Jesus. And in Islam, we don't have that so much. But at the same time, we have internalized a lot of those images. And so as a result, we have produced this Mary who is just so above and almost to an angelic station where she's not even human. And so with that, I want to share with you guys a couple of images that I gathered. Okay, so the first one, before I go any further, does anybody know what these three pictures are? And if you do, just you can type them into the chat. Okay, I have one guess. Got another guess. Yay, you can give yourselves a pat on the back. This is the mihrab or the prayer space of Mary. And so, well, let me say that this is believed to be the prayer space of Mary by Muslims who live in Jerusalem. And it is in the temple. And actually, you can go there, you can visit it, and you can see it. There's actually a really interesting video on YouTube. This is a side note where some people go there and they pray and all of this. It's really nice. But anyway, this is her space. And I think that her story of courage begins in this place because we all have this image. I really feel like we have this image that Mary's agency was just stripped from her and she just went along from one thing to the next and never really had any choice in anything. But if you think about it, her mother brings her here. She dedicates her to the temple. But at some point, Mary had to choose to be there. And that was a courageous choice. Because if indeed she is the first woman to be in this temple, to be dedicated there for worship, that had to be scary. That had to be, wow, why me? There had to be this moment of, how will I compare to everyone else here who has been dedicated to the temple, to the boys who have been dedicated to the temple? She charted new territory, and that took courage for her. That wasn't something, oh, you can't hear me? Okay, let me turn it up. Let's see. Can you hear me now? And you may need to get some headphones or something like that. I'm waiting to see if you guys can hear me before I go any further. Okay, you can hear. Yeah, so you either need to turn it up or get some headphones or something like that to help you out. But that took courage to accept that choice, okay, take that on for herself and say, yes, indeed, I'm going to dedicate myself fully to this temple and fully to God. And this is going to be my choice. And I'm going to be here and I'm going to love it and I'm going to live it. So that alone took courage from Mary. Then I have another image with two other images I want to share with you guys. Now, even if we are Muslims, this is what we have. Even when you see the pictures of the Annunciation, Mary may look a little frightened, right? But she's a full grown, mature woman. And she's still frightened, but she's saintly and she's ready to take it on. And you see what I'm saying? We have this image of, again, this romanticized angelic figure who just has no agency and no choice and really just goes along with anything without really having fear as any other human being would have. And so we've internalized these images. In fact, as Muslims, we really love these images because we say, oh, well, see, look, she's covered and we cover and see, we're like Mary. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I want us to begin to, again, look at her as a fully actualized human being who was in a situation that was uncharted territory. Here she is, she's the first girl dedicated to the temple. Now she's here, she's accepted it, she worships God, she loves Him with all her heart. She experiences miracles. And when she's experiencing those miracles, she even has the courage to state them for what they are. So when Zechariah comes to her and he finds that she has these fruits that are from different seasons that are with her, she doesn't become shy about it. She doesn't hide it. She has the courage to speak up and say, yes, this is from my Lord. And so we see from the beginning that this is a woman of strength and this is a woman of certitude, even from a very young age. And so we have these images of this mature woman. But what if we thought of Mary more like this? And my Muslims here, or anybody here, before you get hung up on the clothes, we're not getting hung up on the clothes, okay? Don't get hung up on the clothes. We're thinking about Mary and who she was. And so most sources say that she was between 10 and 15 years old when the Annunciation happened, when she received the news that she was to have a son. I mean, I just want us to sit with that for a minute. And some of you may push back and you may say, okay, well, you know, that was pre-modern times. Girls back then had kids. That wasn't so scary. What's so courageous about that? And indeed, during those times, girls of that age had kids, but those women were married. And a woman like Mary would have been married. And so here we have a girl who's been dedicated to the temple. She's given herself wholeheartedly to God with all of this devotion. And she receives this news that she is to have a son, having never been married. And surely she knows the implications of this. Because you have to think about it. Again, we have this picture that she's been dedicated to the temple, and it's just roses and sunshine. Surely there was someone who doubted the fact that she should be in the temple in the first place. And surely she knew of that. And now she's in this circumstance where she has to be faced with having a son without having been married, without having a husband, without really knowing anything of the world, really. And so, what did she do? So, I want to read here the portion of the Quran that talks about this. So, a messenger comes to her. She withdrew to a place in the east, right? And so the messenger comes to her and she says, "Lo, I seek refuge in the beneficent one from thee, if thou art God fearing." He said, "I am only a messenger of thy Lord to bestow upon thee the gift of a holy son." She said, "How can I have a son when no mortal hath touched me, neither have I been unchaste?" He said, "So it shall be. The Lord saith, it is easy for me, and we shall make him a sign for mankind and a mercy from us, and it is a thing ordained." So here we see, first of all, she's like, wait a minute, where's this messenger coming from? I'm get back from me. Who are you? So she stands up for herself in that moment. And then when he tells her, look, you're going to have a son, she questions it for understanding, but then she accepts it going forward and she takes that on. She has the courage to take that on going forward. Now, there are two stories in the Muslim tradition. And one is that Zachariah's wife saw Mary and she was showing the signs, of being pregnant. And Mary explained to her, look, yes, I'm pregnant and, I have not been unchaste. Zachariah's wife says, yes, I understand. And whatever is in my womb, which we know that was John. So John is in her womb. So she says, whoever is in my womb, I can feel that he's prostrating to he who is in your womb. And so, in other words, she accepted it. She didn't ask a whole lot of questions about it. But then we have another story from Mary's cousin, Joseph. And he also sees her showing signs of being pregnant. And he has this moment where he's incredulous and he's like, wait a minute, I know who this woman is. I know that she's a worshiper, all of this. Oh, okay, I just see a request for the verses. So this is Surah 19, verses 8, chapter 19, verses 18 through 22. Okay? And so he asks her, he doesn't want to be improper with her. So he asks her, he says, Mary, has there ever been a tree that grew that didn't have a seed? In other words, trying to say, how could you be pregnant? You haven't been intimate with anybody. So, but this has never happened. This doesn't even happen in nature. And her answer to him is so bold and so brave and so full of certainty and so courageous. She tells him, well, you know, all of creation came without a beginning. God said, be, and it is. And also, Adam came without a seed, and God said, be, and it is. And from that, Joseph had the certainty that, okay, yes, you know, this is true. She is an innocent, a chaste woman. You know what? I'm not sure. And I know that her father by then had passed away. So here she is. She's pregnant. She knows the onslaught that is going to come. And she goes into her labor pains and she's inspired to go and withdraw. And so she withdraws. And here she is. She's alone. She's under the foot of a palm tree. And this is a woman who has never been intimate, never been married. Her whole life has been dedicated to God and worship in the temple. And here she is having to be in labor with a child. But she has this certainty and she has this attachment and she has this love for God. And she knows that that will give her the courage to go forth. And she has this moment. She has a human moment. She's telling us, all of us, I'm human. Okay. And she yells that, oh my goodness, I just wish I had been dead before all of this, because she is in so much pain. And she is consoled by a voice below, and she's guided as to what to do to the baby, and she's told that she has to go on a fast. And now the most difficult moment of her life. And you say the most difficult moment, my goodness, she was dedicated to the temple. That was difficult. An angel comes to her, tells her she's going to have a child without a husband. That was difficult. But now, even more so than all of those trials, here she has to come and she has to face the people with a child. And I really need us to understand the severity of this, because, again, we're talking about a girl between the ages of 10 and 15 who has been known to be righteous, to be of a good lineage. And now she has to have the courage to face the people. And not only does she have to face the people, she's vowed a fast. She can't talk. Just imagine the difficulty of that. Imagine what she had to bear. And we also have to think about the fact that there are people now to this day, it's 2021, and there are some people who still malign Mary and say that, oh, that wasn't possible. She probably just, you know, was having illicit relationship with someone and that's how she got pregnant. All the way till now, 2000 years later still. And so she has to face them and she has to bear this. And she bore it with dignity. And what did she do? She obeyed God. She didn't speak up for herself and say, no, 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 this, you guys don't understand. Let me explain. She pointed to her child, and her child defended her. And let me say this as well. A lot of people think, I know as a Muslim, I read that and I'm like, whew, okay, see, Jesus defended her, and there you go. But obviously, we know it wasn't there you go. Because if 2,000 years later, people are still saying that there's a likelihood that she wasn't a virgin, then we know that some people didn't believe it. We know from our own prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that his miracles were not believed, that he was rejected, that he was called a sorcerer, and all types of things. Perhaps this happened with Mary. Perhaps she was rejected in this way. Okay, yeah, your son is speaking, but how do we know you haven't bewitched us? There's something wrong with this situation. And she had to bear that. And she had to bear that with the knowledge that she had God and she had her son. And so from that place, she mothers him. Despite what people said about her, she mothers him. She loves him. She brings him to maturity. For a while, she flees away from him. So remember this life secluded and worship and all of this. And now she has to come out of this life and flee with her son, take care of her son. She returns with her son and she believes in him and he starts his mission. And she has to have the courage to see all of the accusations and all of the disbelief in him and calling him a false preacher and a false prophet and all of these things. She has to bear it as she bore it before for herself. So not only, and we know as mothers, not only it's very difficult to be accused of things on our own, but when we have someone who's so dear and beloved to us, to have to bear that with them, it's very, very difficult. And it took so much courage on her part. And so the final image that I want to leave you with is this image here. She goes through this life of difficulty and trials. She supports her son in his mission. And then he has to be raised up to God. And we know that Mary's heart was fully dedicated to God because she experienced miracles from him. We know that she was a saintly woman. We know that she was attached. But this does not mean that she wasn't human. And this does not mean that her heart was not grieved to have gone through all of these trials because of him, for his sake, loving him. and then for him to be raised up, knowing that in her lifetime she would not see him again. And so, what did she do? So, in the books, the resource that I'm using tonight is Mary, the Blessed Virgin of Islam. And I honestly recommend that anybody should read it, even if you're not Muslim, just so you can get a solid perspective of how we think about Mary as Muslims. But in the book, it says, she wept and she was, really sad for her son. But then she returned to what she knew. She returned to worship, to a life of worship and a life of love and a life of attachment to God. And this took courage on her behalf. And then she dies and she parts from us. So, what I want to leave you with is that Mary indeed had agency. She indeed had choice. She was human. She felt sadness. She felt fear. But she rose to the occasion and she rose to the trials that God gave to her. And so, our lesson as women, as believing women, is to have the courage of Mary and to cease romanticizing her. Indeed, we can love her and indeed we can revere her as a saintly woman, as even possibly a prophet. But we also know that she was human and she suffered so much. And she did it with dignity and she did it with courage. And we too can take on the banner of believing women, whatever circumstance, no matter what came her way. She prepared herself and she steeled herself and she accepted it and she went forth with complete fidelity and courage. And so that is the lesson that we should take away from our human, saintly prophet, maybe Mary. May the peace and blessings of God be upon her.
Wow, thank you so much,